the quietest nights, even breathing is so faint that even a heart dares not speak. Perhaps that's when nature whispers most easily. Has anyone ever noticed that even when we have everything, a house, a car, children, money, our hearts remain empty, like an abandoned house uninhabited? We run after hope, after dreams, after fear, but we run until we're exhausted. Have we stopped to ask ourselves what we're running for? Some people wake up early, live the day, and go to sleep without ever asking this question. It's like putting on shoes and walking down a path everyone else has walked, without even knowing where it leads. Without knowing the destination, we don't know what's valuable, what we should let go of. So we carry everything: resentment, fear, greed, hatred, past pain and unfulfilled expectations. But there is one thing lighter than all of it, lighter than the sound of wind rustling through the leaves. That thing is Dhamma. Dhamma isn't meant to be passively listened to or memorized to show you know it, but rather, when it touches the heart, it brings such lightness that you want to let go of everything. It's not because it tells you you're wrong or sinful, but because it shows you that your suffering is unnecessary. This isn't just ordinary listening. If your mind is open even slightly, these words of Dhamma can become a gateway to your inner self, like a small light in a dark, silent cave. Many have asked why we need to listen to it repeatedly. The answer is because our hearts are trapped in delusion. Every day there are new things to cling to, every night there's the past to dwell on, and because listening to Dhamma is like cleansing the tainted body and mind. It's like constantly dripping water onto a hard, gnarled rock, drop by drop. One day it will become hollow and deep. The same is true of life. When you listen until you've penetrated the words, leaving only enlightenment in your heart, then you change without explanation. You change because you see that the old path is too exhausting to bear. You change because you feel that this new path embodies everything you never knew before. Some people wait for their lives to fall apart before returning to the Dharma. Some wait until their last breath before they think about letting go. But you are listening to this Dharma while you still have breath. That means you are luckier than many others. Lucky to have the opportunity to listen, the opportunity to change, the opportunity to start anew. And if your mind is ready, today may be the day that changes the course of your entire life's karma. But not through anyone's words, not through external miracles, but through your own mind. This is not just an ordinary lesson, it's an introduction to returning home, to your true, calm, and free mind, devoid of attachments. But it doesn't end there. What you are about to hear will not only help you understand, but will also guide you to see with your heart what suffering is and that the solution is closer than you ever thought. The first thing we need to see is something we've avoided our entire lives, looking directly into the suffering within ourselves. The first step is to understand suffering, not just to run away from it. If there's one thing everyone wants to escape, it's suffering. Yet, strangely enough, even if we run from it our whole lives, it's still there, sometimes even closer than our breath. Many people spend their lives trying not to. We try to feel pain so we won't be sad, so we won't suffer, but only a few people are willing to open their eyes and see suffering for what it is, without hiding, without fear, and without rushing to cover it up with anything. Not wanting to suffer is not the path to liberation. Liberation begins with accepting it directly, like a deep wound that won't heal just by being bandaged. It must be open to be treated, to be seen, to be touched, to be understood. As long as we fear suffering, we are its slaves. Every morning, many people wake up with heavy hearts, the exhaustion not from the body but from within, filled with unanswered questions. What did I do wrong? Why isn't life getting better? Why am I still so sad? Every night before bed, many fall asleep in tears, without knowing why they are truly sad. Some pain doesn't originate from external causes but from within ourselves, from clinging too tightly to something. The word suffering doesn't always mean being beaten or losing a loved one. Sometimes, suffering comes in the form of a small voice in our hearts telling us we're not good enough, as comparisons that make us feel inferior, as silent killing, or as hopes that unknowingly become a burden. The Buddha didn't teach us to run away from suffering. He taught us to understand it and to look deeply enough so we no longer fear it. When we truly understand it, we see that it's not as bad as we thought. It's merely a shadow that lengthens because of the flickering light of the mind. And when the mind becomes still, that shadow recedes. Then we will see what truly lies within that suffering. In the middle, between hope and reality, is conflict, and that conflict is the very essence of every company. This is the first, noble truth. Those who refuse to see it cannot achieve it. If you have the chance to sit quietly for just 5 minutes, ask yourself honestly, what am I suffering from right now? You might find that it's not something big, not death, not loss, but a feeling of inadequacy that has simmered in your heart for so long that you've forgotten it exists. What weighs you down isn't an external problem, but your unwillingness to let go of something within yourself. We've created something that's beyond its time limit, like a child hugging a broken doll. The tighter you hug, the more it cuts your hand. My teacher, Ajahn Chah, once compared suffering to cow dung. Why would we keep it? Because we haven't seen it as cow dung, we mold it and play with it, placing it on our heads. Then tell yourself that this is something valuable. If you now feel a quieting within, if you feel something touching your heart, know that it is the light of Dharma beginning to shine. Seeing suffering is not the end of happiness, but the beginning of freedom. Because when we see suffering, we will no longer be deceived by it. We will not tie our hope to uncertainty. We will not wear guilt as clothing. We will not hurt ourselves with the recurring thought that there is no escape from life. Because when we see suffering, we will begin to see that it lasts for so long because something nourishes it, and that something is the cause of the suffering. What we are about to walk from now on is even deeper. And when you silently see the cause of suffering in your heart, that is, the point at which your mind begins to change is not because someone preaches to you, but because your mind willingly accepts it. That is a new, lighter path. Are you ready to move forward? Because what awaits you will lead you to the root cause of all karmic ties that no one has ever told you about. But today is the time for your mind to know the cause of suffering, samudaya. Why do some people, even after hearing the Dharma and clearly seeing suffering in their hearts, still not attain liberation? Because even though we know suffering exists, if we don't know its origin, we continue to cycle with it endlessly. Many people misunderstand suffering as coming from the external world, from other people, from fate. But the Buddha always points directly to within. The root cause of suffering is never in anyone else. It lies in the mind that still clings, still hopes, still fears, and still desires. When there is desire, fear follows. When fear arises, weariness is born, and all of it combines to become suffering. This is what is called the origin of suffering, samudaya. This term sounds difficult, but in reality, it's simpler than you think. Suffering arises from a mind that still desires, and when we desire, it means we are not yet satisfied. Consider the kinds of desires that arise in our daily lives. Wanting people to understand, wanting them not to say that to us, wanting our children to be as we hope, wishing we could go back and correct mistakes, wanting a day without any annoyance, wanting our loved ones not to change, wanting a secure future. All these desires seem ordinary, but they are the fuel of suffering, because the more we desire, the more our hearts tremble. And whenever the mind is not free, suffering will stay with us. The Buddha's teachings never condemned desire, but pointed out that desire itself is the root cause, especially insatiable desire. It's like filling a cup with seawater. No matter how many times you fill it, the water will never be bland. Many people believe that having much is happiness, but deep down, having much is accompanied by much fear. Fear of loss, fear of not having enough, fear of someone taking what's taken away. And when our minds are filled with fear, we become increasingly weary without knowing why. The noble ones dare to let go because they clearly see that all suffering arises from clinging to impermanent things, and the most subtle clinging is to the self. When we cling to the idea that I must be like this, I must be skilled, I must be good, I must succeed, I must not fail, we suffer when the opposite happens. The more we cling to the belief that we can control things, the more we suffer from what we cannot control. The more we think we know best, the more disappointed we become when things don't go according to plan. But have you noticed that most of our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens, but from what we imagine will happen? We worry in advance, we fear in advance, and that fear consumes the present moment. This is the deepest cause of suffering, thoughts that we don't let go of. These energies don't give us a choice, they pull us in. Unconsciously. Consider a simple example. When someone is criticized, we feel guilty, we want to explain, we want to retaliate. All of that happens in an instant. It's not intentional, but the pull of karmic energy deeply embedded in the mind. And as long as we don't recognize this force, if we pull on it, we will be controlled by it, and that means we are still slaves to karma. What Ajahn Mun always emphasized was not about escaping desire, but about seeing desire as it arises. Because the moment we recognize that desire, it loses its power. It's like smoke rising and then dissipating the moment the light of mindfulness appears. But if we don't recognize it, that desire will lead us astray, and the further we go, the more we mistakenly believe it to be ourselves. This is why so many people, the more they have and the more successful they become, the more exhausted they become, because they are building a new life on the same old desires, until one day, even with everything, they feel like they have nothing left. So what do we do when we know that desire is the root of suffering? Will we run away from it or accept it? The answer is up to you, but before you decide, please consider this carefully. Delve a little deeper. Between living with the same desires in a never-ending cycle until death and making a small change, observing your own mind for 5 minutes each day, which path would you choose? One is the same old path, knowing how exhausting it is. The other is a wider, uncertain, but steadfast path. No matter which path you choose, you will be the sole recipient of the consequences. At this point, if your heart begins to see that liberation is not far away and that ending suffering isn't as difficult as you once thought, know that this Dharma talk hasn't been in vain. You haven't just been listening, your heart is beginning to see. And if your heart sees, it's ready to change, ready to continue the journey, ready to no longer be a victim of karma, and ready to step into something deeper, something that isn't just seeing the cause of suffering, but seeing it from within. The path out of suffering, seen with your own eyes, a path many have overlooked, is now right in front of you. Are you ready to step onto it? The Eightfold Path to liberation from suffering is now within your daily life. When your mind clearly sees the cause of suffering, the next question naturally arises: how can we escape this suffering? The Buddha didn't just give an answer, but a path that is clearer, deeper, and simpler than anything else in the world. That path is called the Middle Way, composed of various elements of Dhamma. However, for most people, upon hearing about the Eightfold Path, they immediately think it's incredibly difficult, requiring ordination, going into the forest, meditating overnight, and abandoning everything to follow this path. While this understanding isn't wrong, it causes us to miss an opportunity, because in reality, this middle way isn't something you have to seek out. But it's in every breath, every word, every thought, every action we take each day. It's all there. If we are aware of it and place our trust in the right way, then escaping suffering begins right there. There's no need to climb mountains, leave home, change religions, have free time, or seek understanding from others. You don't need to wait until you become a monk to start. It begins the moment you wake up one morning and tell yourself, "Today I won't speak ill of anyone, I won't retaliate with anger, and I won't try to win against anyone." It begins driving to work without rushing, cursing, or judging anyone. It begins pausing to breathe for a moment before answering difficult questions with compassion. That is right view, samadhi, the correct understanding that begins with not looking at the world through the lens of desire. When the mind clearly sees that suffering arises from clinging to something, then there is nothing to cling to. What should be placed where one should be, that is the correct view. But once the heart sees that, the next step is right thought, samma sankappa, right thought. Thought that does not harm, does not blame anyone, and does not use the word must for everything in life. That thought is light, like a gentle breeze that softly rustles the leaves. And when we think good thoughts, our words will be good. That is right speech, samavaka, right words. It's not just about not lying, but also not speaking hurtfully, not speaking to deceive, not speaking to win, and not speaking to make anyone feel inferior. Every word uttered, if it comes from a compassionate heart, will not hurt anyone, even if it's not sweet. So how will we live our lives if our mouths don't speak evil and our hearts don't think evil? The answer is that we will begin to live with right action, samma manta, right action, which is using this body for the benefit of others, not harming or taking advantage of others. What you don't create with your hands, you don't create with your eyes, you don't consume with your mind. Have you ever felt how fragile our bodies are to the energy of intentions? Just speaking ill or thinking ill tenses the body, but when you speak well and act well, your heart feels light, and your body relaxes accordingly. And a life lived with good intentions will not require you to run away from guilt. You will sleep deeper, and you won't need to erase memories because there's nothing to regret. Following action is earning a living. Many people exploit others to survive, but this teaches us the importance of earning a living without harming others. It's not just about choosing a profession that doesn't hurt people, doesn't trade animals, and doesn't cheat, but about working with a pure heart, without harming yourself, not selling happiness for the sake of peace, and not selling fame. If having money means sacrificing spiritual well-being, that is not righteousness. If a career means trampling on sincerity, that is not a righteous livelihood. But temptation doesn't stop at thoughts, words, actions, and making a living. The Buddha taught us to cultivate right effort, samavayama, the effort to abandon bad things, to avoid creating new evil, to maintain the good that already exists, and to constantly cultivate new goodness in our hearts. This effort is not driven by stress or self-forgiveness until exhaustion, but by a heart that understands that everything is impermanent and that we are doing this to alleviate suffering, not to gain anything. This effort will lead us to right mindfulness, samasati, which is being aware of the present moment, not letting the mind wander to a painful past or a fearful future. You will see that all suffering is never truly in the present. It resides in thoughts that drift forward or backward. Just be present in the moment, as you sit, breathe, listen, and do what you're doing right now. There's nothing to fear, nothing to rush, nothing to fix. We're simply unfamiliar with that stillness. We're more accustomed to the noise in our heads than the sound of our own breathing. But when we practice mindfulness until it becomes second nature, that stillness becomes the foundation of the mind. Ultimately, this path leads to right concentration, sama-samadhi. Right concentration isn't the kind of concentration where you sit still for 10 hours, but rather a concentration that is unwavering, uninfatuated, and free from emotions. A concentration that brings us back to reality, back to knowing that true happiness isn't about possessions, but about letting go of what's unnecessary, and yet still being able to smile. When all 8 elements mentioned above come together as one path, we begin to see that it's not a road in the scriptures, not a lofty dream of enlightened beings, it's our daily life. Every morning when we wake up, we have the right to choose to walk mindfully on the same path filled with desire, anger, and self-deception, or to change little by little, choosing our words, our hearts, and a new, more peaceful life. And we don't have to wait for a specific day to start. Even this very second, a small decision can transform our entire lives. But you might still wonder, will this guiding principle truly help us escape, or is it just a good path that we can't reach? The answer isn't in these words, the answer is in your heart. Because simply listening to this Dharma talk and feeling even a little more peaceful means you have walked on that path. And if your heart truly feels that lightness, the next thing that will happen may not just be understanding, but seeing with an awakened mind that everything in the world, this world is impermanent, and liberation is not as far away as we once thought. Are you ready to look deeper? Because what lies ahead will show us that there is truly nothing to cling to in this world. And when we know this, what was once heavy will become light, what was once elusive will loosen, and what was once feared will become merely a passing breath. Witnessing death and upholding the truth of impermanence, once the mind has walked its path, what begins to appear in meditation is not just peace, but a small light that begins to reveal a certain truth, a truth we have overlooked throughout our lives. That truth is not from textbook teachings, not from theoretical understanding, but a truth that can be felt in the heart, seen in suffering and the phenomena of life from the moment we wake until our last breath. So what is that truth? Impermanence is the inevitable. Change is something no one can escape. Nothing lasts forever, no matter how much we try to hold on to it, no matter how much we cherish it. Even the most certain things crumble before our very eyes. This is the nature of impermanence, the law of change. We don't suffer because of change itself, but because we cling to what has changed, believing it to be unchanging. We don't grieve because someone leaves, but because we once believed they would always be with us. We don't suffer because of failure, but because we deceived ourselves into believing everything would go according to plan. Therefore, it's not the world that is cruel, but the false expectations we cling to. In reality, nothing in this world truly belongs to us, not even this body, which is not under our control. We cannot command our hearts to stop beating or to beat longer than they should. We cannot extend our lives as we wish or prevent aging. Everything proceeds according to its natural course. And when our hearts accept that everything is impermanent, then we begin to let go. We can let go not because we are good at letting go, but because we see that there is nothing to cling to. Everything we once wanted, were, or had, ultimately ends in decay. But simply seeing that things are impermanent is not enough, because when something is impermanent, it inevitably brings suffering. Trying to cling to impermanent things tires our minds chronically. This is suffering, the inability to tolerate, the inability to control. Have you ever noticed that we are not tired from work, but from expecting everyone to understand us? I'm tired of taking care of my children and grandchildren, but I'm even more tired of trying to make them behave the way I want. I don't know why they're leaving, but I know they shouldn't be that way. The truth is, we want to control everything, but life never gives us anything to control. Even our feelings can change in an instant. This is suffering, dukkha. When something is impermanent and causes suffering, it is not ours. This is the final truth, non-self, anatta. There is no self, nothing that truly belongs to us or us. We think our mind is ours, but ask yourself, can we choose our feelings? Why is our mind sometimes clouded when we don't want it to be? Why are we sometimes afraid for no reason? Why do we sometimes lie when we know we shouldn't? If this mind is ours, why can't we control it? No, because this mind is not us in the way we once believed. When nothing is ours, we begin to feel lighter, like someone who has clutched possessions tightly and one day realizes that none of them belong to them. They then release their grip and their heart feels lighter without effort. But seeing the three characteristics, impermanence, suffering, and non-self, isn't about memorizing or simply saying that everything is impermanent. It's about truly seeing in every moment, seeing in times of sorrow, seeing in times of joy, even seeing in the feeling of wanting to be free from suffering, because even the feeling of wanting liberation is impermanent. Not clinging to even liberation, that is true freedom. And when the mind sees this clearly, it will no longer struggle, it will no longer disappear, it will no longer compare, it will no longer demand a better life, because it knows that everything is as it is. Not in despair, but with a profound lightness. There is nothing to cling to, nothing to let go of, nothing to rush to grasp, nothing to resist. Just being with an aware heart, this is the state of liberation, a state where, even though the world continues to spin, our hearts no longer spin with it. And this state is not far away. We just need to pause for a moment and ask ourselves directly, is what I am clinging to right now permanent? Is it suffering? Is it truly mine? If the answer is no, you don't need permission, you can let go now. And when you let go, what was once heavy becomes a light breeze, what burned your heart becomes mere dust in the morning sun, and what was once fear becomes a peaceful, empty space. This is seeing the three jewels of existence. The purpose of spiritual practice is not to understand the world, but to let go of it, not to control anything, but to live without control, and not to change anyone, but to let everything unfold without carrying any burdens in one's heart. This is the essence of true practice and simple merit in daily life. When the mind begins to see the impermanence of things, old beliefs begin to waver. What was once believed to be certain becomes merely a shadow, What was once feared begins to lessen without effort. But knowledge, if not distilled into practice, is like clear water that never flows to nourish a plant. Therefore, what is heard must be translated into action, not with stress, not with resistance, but with a heart ready to walk a new path with small steps in real life, because merit doesn't need to wait until the temple. It doesn't need to wait. Time doesn't require any elaborate ceremonies. Merit can begin with the smallest changes we make. It starts with becoming aware of the moment when your heart is about to get angry, then simply pausing for a moment, taking one deep breath, and gently letting it pass. That is merit because you have just stopped sending negative karma for another moment. Begin every night before bed, stopping all the busy day by gently bowing 3 times in front of yourself. Do it without anyone seeing, without explanation, without asking permission, because nothing is necessary. Simply allow your heart to slowly lower itself back to a point of gentleness. That is merit because you have just unknowingly released your anger. Begin one morning, before picking up your phone, choose to sit still for just 1 minute, close your eyes, and chant only the word Bado, or Anicca, impermanence, with 5 breaths. That is merit because you have just opened up a space for. Let the light shine upon you. Do you see now that doing good deeds doesn't require money, but rather a heart willing to change from habit to self-awareness, from haste to gentleness in the mind, from immediate curiosity to willingly listening to the gentle inner voice? No one forces you, no one watches you, there are no points counted, but every time you do these small things, you are creating a new path, stopping past karma. Great deeds begin with changing just one habit. You don't need to practice to attain a high level of enlightenment, but practice to prevent your heart from going astray again. Some people walk meditation at the temple for 10 years, but their hearts are still restless. Some people simply breathe softly by their bedside and gain wisdom, because the important thing is not the outward posture, but the sincere intention to one's own heart. If your heart is truly sincere, even a gentle bow can bring tears of repentance. If your heart is not negligent, even a single prayer can shake the merit of your entire life. This is a path that no one forces you, but your mind can choose. Will you remain in the same old habits, like yesterday, repeating the same cycle of weariness, or will you start this morning with mindfulness, even if only a little, transforming your whole day? If you hesitate, try just one thing tonight. Before you sleep, turn off all the lights and slowly bow down to the ground. Don't pray, don't ask for anything, just tell yourself, that's enough. This life of being lost is enough. Quote. Then, sleep with a gently softened heart, and tomorrow, start again a little more. Because every small step you take, placing your trust in the Dharma, will become the beginning of a new life, lighter than before, more peaceful, and allowing you to be with yourself without needing anything else, showing something to others. Is true merit, one that doesn't need to boast or ask for blessings. Simply by changing your mind, even slightly, that merit begins to fill your heart. In short, set your intention to share merit. When this chapter of Dharma reaches its end, we may not become a new person immediately, but at least our hearts have begun to feel something different. It's not new knowledge, not unheard teachings, but rather a humble and quiet willingness to listen to the Dharma within us. This is achieved through a new understanding that suffering is not our enemy, through seeing its root cause, that desire is the fuel that nourishes us, through the peaceful path called the Noble Eightfold Path, and through experiencing the true nature of all things. Everything is impermanent, suffering, and not self. We have learned that merit doesn't require money, but small acts of sincerity, a willingness to let go of certain things from the heart. No one walks with us our entire lives. No one is with us with every breath except our mind, the quietest and truest friend. And that mind is the only thing that has the power to make us suffer or to expel suffering. Today, your mind hears the Dharma, and if it truly understands, it will never be the same again. Like a white cloth once stained with mud, when even a single drop of clear water falls, it begins to regain some of its cleanliness. If that drop falls every day, every morning, every night, that cloth will gradually become a soft, beautiful, and light white cloth again. Similarly, listening to the Dharma is not just about knowledge, but about consistently cleansing the mind. Don't expect immediate change, but just have the faith to listen. If it will do its job, it will gradually purify the darkness within. Let it become emptiness. It will dissolve attachment, transforming it into gentleness. It will cleanse passion, bringing coolness without words. And at some point, you will begin to realize that you no longer need to struggle, to conquer anything, to chase anyone, to explain yourself to anyone. Because your heart begins to dwell on itself, in simplicity, in the right breath, in feelings that need no embellishment, in the most perfect imperfection. If you have listened this far, know that you have completed 1 hour of meditation, 1 chapter of returning home, 1 cycle of reflecting on the reality of life. Don't think about what you need to do next, just remember that your heart always has the Dharma as its refuge. And whenever you are tired, lost, or feel lost, you can listen again. It never expires, it never gets angry with you, it never despises any of your flaws. It's just waiting for you to stop running and turn back to meet again. And if tonight you feel lighter than this morning, that's a sign that it's starting to work in your heart. Set a gentle intention in your heart. It doesn't have to be grand or formal, just a whisper in your heart. May this heart be freed from its passions, or simply, enough, I will let go. The prayer doesn't have to be beautiful or perfect, just sincere. You will know, and the merit from this peaceful intention will affect the karma you unknowingly carry. Now is the perfect time to pass on this merit, not just to yourself, but to your parents, both those still alive and those who have passed away, to those who may have wronged you unknowingly, and to all lives still lost in the darkness of their hearts. Gently, now, please send this. Silently dedicate this merit, praying that the power of this good deed will reach all those connected to me, both those I love and those I have been angry with. May they also receive the light of Dharma. And in that silence, even if no one hears, that merit will travel through the pure stream of consciousness. Nothing is too small to be virtuous, no heart too low. To repent, no past too heavy for a new beginning, and no night too dark for the small light of Dharma you have just ignited in your heart. Tonight, you may not be perfect yet, but you have begun to reconnect with yourself, and truly being with yourself is the highest form of self-compassion. Tonight, if you are quiet enough, you may hear a voice in your heart saying, "It's good that we've returned to listen and practice again." And that voice may be the voice you've been waiting for so long, a voice that never shouts but never disappears, a voice that always calls you home.